Hey, welcome back. So, last time we did a lot of stuff and nothing really happened. We didn't get any cool animations or power-ups or anything like that. Basically, the game was exactly like it was before we started. But, as I said, that was to prepare for what we're going to do today. Because today we're going to do animated tiles. So, again, this is a tutorial from NES, the very talented NES. And this tutorial is a really big tutorial, as you can see. So, I can't explain absolutely everything in detail. So I'm going to try to do some sort of high-level explanation. Try to explain sort of what's going on as we do this. Because there's so much going on here in this tutorial. Let's just get right to it. He says we should start by following his guide to move some stuff to bank 16. We did that last time. We don't have to worry about this one. The next one says download the attached zip file and put the switch CHR bank macro in your base 4.5 system macros folder. We will have to do that. So actually let's just do that right now. So he has a link at the bottom of the tutorial. And there we go, animated tile stuff. So let's download that one. There we go. And let's also just open this file. And he told us to move this file called switch CHR bank macro. So he has made a new macro for us. So we need to put that in the macros folder. So open up your Agent Blue folder, the NESmaker folder, and go to Game Engine Data, Routines, Base 4.5, and normally we go into Game here. Now we're going to go into System, because that's where we find the macros folder. So in this macros folder we have all the macros we can use in NESmaker. And actually, just by copying a file into this folder includes it in NESmaker. So normally we would have to do all this script define and all those sort of things. But in the case of macros, we can just copy a file into this folder, and that's enough. That includes it into NESmaker. So let's do that with this switch CHR bank macro that we just downloaded. So just drag it over here, and there it is. So that's it. Now we have a new macro in NESmaker. Okay, so let's continue. Download macro, yes. Set up user screen bytes. We did that last time as well, so we don't have to worry about that one. But this next one, add a new temp variable in NESmaker's user variables. So he suggests that we use temp j. So let's just copy temp j here. Copy temp j, and let's go to NESmaker, project settings, and user variables. Let's add a new user variable, and let's paste in temp j like that. So this temp variable will be used by the animated tiles routine. You don't have to worry too much about that. So if you paste it in temp j, just close this one and go back to the tutorial. So okay, we need to add two more user variables. So let's copy anim timer and go back to NESmaker and let's go to user variables, add, and paste in anim timer. And I happen to know that we should set this to 16. So just set up this anim timer and set the initial value to 16. And this time let's leave this window open and go back to the tutorial, and we need to add another user variable called anim frame. And as you can see right here, it says to add to set the anim timer to 16. So, but copy anim frame. All right, add a new user variable and paste anim frame in there. So now we have added 3 new user variables: tempj, anim timer, and anim frame. And anim timer should be set to an initial value of 16. Okay, if you have these 3 variables set up, close this window and back to the tutorial. So we will be going a lot of back and forth between the tutorial window and a lot of files because this tutorial it's a little complicated in that we have to do a lot of modifications to several files here. So I'm going to try not to do this too fast so you can follow along here. But we added these variables. So the next one is set up handle game timer script. So here's the thing. If we go to NESmaker and script settings, project settings, script settings. So by default, if we go down to game here, you can see that there is in fact a script defined for handle game timer. That's default. I think that's in all modules. But right now it points to a file called blank ASM. That's no good to us. That's a completely blank file. So that's not going to work. And we really shouldn't edit this blank file either, because that's used by so many other things. So let's just leave the blank file blank. And let's make a new one instead. So let's go to our NESmaker folder and let's close this zip file. So in our NESmaker folder, we go to Game Engine Data Routines Base 4.5 Game, and let's go to Mod Metroidvania, because that's the module we're using for this game. So Mod Metroidvania, and let's go into Game here. So the way I do it when I'm creating a new file like this, I just right click on an empty area, just right click, just new text document. So I'm just going to write game timer. Right now it has a file type of txt, so I'm going to remove that and I'm going to write ASM instead. Game timer.asm. That's my new file, and I'm actually going to open it as well. And I'm just going to write a little comment here on the top that says game timer, so I know what file it is. So now we have a new file called game timer, and we need to attach that to the script define in NESmaker. So make sure you have game timer in your Mod Metroidvania game folder. And let's go back to NESmaker. Project settings, handle game timer. Make sure we have that one selected. Let's go over to a right, base 4.5, game, Mod Metroidvania. And let's go into game. And there's our new game timer script, so our file. So double click that one, and now we have assigned our new file to the handle game timer. So that's nice. Back to the tutorial. So now we have done the basics. We need to come back to this handle game timer script because there's some code we need to paste in, so just leave the file open for now. And he also says another thing here, and it's in bold text. This is important for this animated tile stuff to work. Make sure the tile layout for the screen you're trying it on is set to no path main plus screen times 3. What does that mean? Well, let's go back to NESmaker. And let's go to our first screen here. So, tile layout. We haven't talked too much about this, but tile layout, it's this button up here. So if I click this one now, I've already set it to no path main screen times 3. The default setup is this first one. It's called normal. So if you can see these tile sets over here on the right, they will change if you change the tile layout here, the tile set layout. So normal, that's a main tile set right here, a screen tile set here, and a path tile set here. This bottom one is for HUD stuff. So if we change it from normal to no path main screen times 3, you can see it changes a little bit over here. So now we have a main tile set and we have 3 screen tile sets. Again, this bottom one is reserved for the HUD. Okay, so let's not go into detail about this kind of stuff. I'm sure by now you have some sort of understanding of these tile sets. And this first one, that's the one we have been using all the time when making background tiles. That's the main tile set. But there are also some screen specific tile sets here, which are basically just more tile sets, but they're separated in this one row of tiles. So you can mix and match really for every screen. But anyway, the important part here is that you need to choose no path main screen times 3 when we are working with these animated tiles in this tutorial. So every screen is going to use animated tiles need to be set up with no path main screen times 3. Okay, so those are the basics. Now, this first part, he talks about sideloading more graphics. Now, in the zip file we just downloaded, there were some graphics in there. Now, in my case, or in our case now, I pre-made some graphics. So if we take a quick look here at our NESmaker folder, if we go to all the way back to the base folder called Agent Blue, sort of the NESmaker folder itself, and if we go into graphic assets, there's the assets for Agent Blue. So if we go into this folder, there's the main tile set. This is the main tile set. And by the way, these smaller ones are the screen specific tile sets that I talked about a minute ago. But the important part right now is this main tile set. But I also made this folder called animated tiles, and that's what James Ness is talking about here right now. That in order to do this properly, inside our normal graphic assets folder, we need to create a new folder called animated tiles. And in this folder, we need some of these smaller tile sets, the same size as these screen specific ones. So we need 2 small files like this. Now, if you're doing this on your own, you could just copy a file like this, make 2 copies, and paste them in animated tiles here. But just make sure that you call them anim tiles 01 and anim tiles 02, just to avoid any sort of confusion. So let's wait a little minute before we talk about how this actually works. But the point here is that we already have the graphics that James is talking about here. There's one more thing that we need to do. Let's just do it right now. So if we go into NESmaker, go into Pixel Editor, and let's open our main tile set, BCKCHR00. Open that one. And let's just set it up like this. So this is our main tile set. Okay. Now we need to go to our pixel editor and add a new tab. Let's go to a new tab and open or load BMP file. Now let's go into the animated tiles folder. And let's open anim tiles 01. Okay. And let's go to pixel editor, add tab, and go to the new tab and load BMP, animated tiles, anim tiles 02. Open anim tiles 02. So basically now we have 3 tile sets open here, but our main tile set is this full tile set right here. These other ones are just 1 row each. But I'm sure you can start to see where the animation is coming in, because if you take a look at these 2 tiles here, they are almost similar, but just a tiny little difference. And in fact, if we click back and forth, you can sort of see the animation here. So let's just get this out of the way. If you're using this tutorial for animated tiles, then you have to remember that in the main tile set, this top row of tiles is reserved for animated tiles. So okay, let's not go too much into detail because there's so much stuff to explain. But just remember that if you're using a screen or a level with animated tiles, you need to make sure that you remember that this top row is part of the animated tiles routine. So just use tiles that you're going to animate up here on this top row. So basically you just have 2 rows to make static graphics if you're using this animated tiles tutorial. So you also need to make sure that these tiles match these new files, anim tiles 01 and anim tiles 02. So this needs to match this one and this one, same with this one. So I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this. So as long as you remember not to use this top row, you should be fine. Now, if you do that, you're going to find out soon enough, because some tiles will be flashing or behaving very weirdly. So it's not like your game's going to crash or anything, but it's going to look weird. Alright, but what we need to do, according to James Ness's tutorial, for these 2 tiles, we need to export them. So just a quick note about graphic files. Normally we're using something called BMP files. Those are normal picture files in Windows. So you can open a BMP file in Microsoft Paint as much as you want, no problem. The problem is that NESmaker or the NES can't read BMP files. The NES can read something called CHR files. And by default, or the way that NESmaker works, is that when we click this export and test button, then it does a lot of stuff. But one of the things it does is it takes this BMP file and makes it into a CHR file. We can't see it, but that happens in the background. So NESmaker converts this BMP file to a CHR file. Okay, so it disappeared. So normally we don't think about this. The problem in this case is that NESmaker doesn't know about these two files. So we have to do this conversion ourselves manually right now. So if we go to AnimTiles01 and Pixel Editor, there's a choice here called Export CHR. So let's choose that one just to make sure we have AnimTiles01 selected. And Export CHR. So these files are not going to be stored with the other graphic files. This we need to store. Let's go back to our base folder, Agent Blue folder, NESmaker folder. And let's go to Game Engine Data, Routines, Base45. This is the root folder for this version of NESmaker. So we have our game folder and our system folder in here. We need to make a new folder in here. So click New Folder and call it Graphics. Like that. So now in Base45 you have 3 folders. And we need to go into Graphics right now. And we need to name this file exactly the same as this one. So AnimTiles01. AnimTiles01. And as you can see down here, it's going to be saved as a CHR file. Okay, AnimTiles01. Save that in Base45 Graphics. Alright. So now we have converted this graphics file into a CHR file, and need to do the same for this next one, AnimTiles02. So go to AnimTiles02, Pixel Editor, Export CHR. And if we click this one, we can just remove this last part and write 02 there instead. And save. So now we have exported both of these as CHR files. Okay. And if you're following James's tutorial on your own, then you need to read this part, and you could use the graphics that he has provided. He says here in the beginning that this part isn't entirely necessary. So you can do it on your own, and we have in fact done that right now. But I'm not going to go through this tutorial line by line because it's so big. So as I said in the beginning, I'm just going to try to explain stuff as we go along. But what we did right now was this part. Export our BMP files to CHR files that the NES can read. So the next thing he says, we need to include those into NESmaker. Just like before, when we were working with code. NESmaker doesn't know about all the things that we do except for the macros folder. Except for the macros folder, NESmaker has no idea what we're doing in the folders. So we need to put this into a file, so NESmaker knows about it. And in this case, we need to tell NESmaker about these 2 new files, these 2 new CHR files. So James Ness says here that Bank 17, there's a lot of free space in Bank 17, so that's a good place to put them. So let's just copy this part anim tiles 01, anim tiles 02, this part right here. So select, copy, and he says add it at the top of the file, bank 17. So let's go back to NESmaker and project settings, script settings. So now it's time to go into bank 17. And if you remember from last time, this is the part where we're actually including something into our RAM file. This time we're going to include it in bank 17. So select bank 17 and edit. And NES suggested that we just put it here at the top. So I'm just going to paste what we just copied right here at the top, like that. So again, like last time, you can see there are a lot of includes here. Now we are writing inc bin, which is sort of like an include, but we are including a binary file instead of a code file. So inc bin is basically the same thing. We're including something in bank 17. Alright, make sure you have those two pasted in at the top. Anim tiles 0, anim tiles 01, 02. Okay. Save the file and let's go back to the tutorial. So now we have two new graphic files included with our game. Yep, that's right. So the next thing he says is to make a reference for them, a reference table for them. And he suggests that we do that in bank 16. We were working with bank 16 last time. So we need to open bank 16 again this time. But we need to make sure we copy this first. Anim tiles low and anim tiles high. So if you read what NES has written here, he says that these are two tables. I'm not going to explain about tables now because that's a whole subject on its own. But these are two tables, anim tiles low and anim tiles high. So select this part and copy. And he says right here, we need to find a spot near the top in bank 17. Okay, let's go back to NESmaker, project settings, script settings, and this time let's open bank 16. Okay, and somewhere near the top, I'm going to put mine right there, just below the one that says include screen data NPC text group. That's where I'm going to paste in my tables. So it looks something like that. Anim tiles low and anim tiles high. So this time we're including two tiny tables in bank 16. Okay, save that. And let's go back to the tutorial. He says, if you're super interested in this, then I suggest you read through this entire tutorial. And in fact, that might be a good idea anyway. Because as I said, there is so much going on here. So if you want a deeper understanding, then you really need to read through this. But let's just get this to work for now. So that's it for part 1, he says. Next part 2, loading the graphics into CHR RAM. So this time we're going to go into the file that we made last time, if you remember, do load screen 16. So let's open up our do load screen 16. Let's just do it from our script settings. And it's all the way at the bottom here, do load screen 16. Let's open that. Edit. And let's see what NES says. First, at the top of the script, under do load screen 16 colon. So the first label called do load screen 16. We need to add this part. switchbank. Switchbank 0. Okay, copy that. And let's go to our doLoad screen 16 file. And just below doLoad screen 16, I'm going to paste this new file, this new line. Switchbank chrbank 00. And in fact, I think I'm going to write a little comment here that says animated tiles. I'm just going to try to comment a little bit as we go along. All right, so what's next? So we're still in doLoad screen 16, by the way. Yeah, so he says we need to find this label, load MSSSS, which is around line 118, he says. So it should look something like that. But before that, let's copy this part. Just include those dotted lines as well. So just copy this whole part. And let's go back to doLoad screen 16 and let's find load MSSSS. Alright, doLoad screen 16. Let's see if we can find it. There it is. There's load MSSSS. So he told us to include this new code right below the label load MSSSS. Alright, so in doLoad screen 16, just make a few open lines like that, and let's paste this new thing in right below load MSSSS. Now these dotted lines, we can't keep them like this, so we need to write a semicolon in front of them. Actually, we could just delete them, but it's kind of nice to just mark up that there's something here. In fact, I'm going to write a little comment as well. Animated tiles, like that. So I know that this part has to do with animated tiles. Okay, so just make sure you did that just below load MSSSS. Alright, again, just make sure you're in doLoad screen 16. It's easy to get confused because there's a lot of back and forth here. Alright, let's go back to the tutorial. And this part is important. We're going to use user screen byte 7. If you remember from last time, we activated the user screen bytes. This routine is going to use user screen byte 7 to activate, just to tell NESmaker if you want animated tiles on a screen or not. I'm going to show you that later on. Okay. Next, he says at the end of load MSSSS, we're going to add something here. So let's copy this part. The code that ends with JMP done loading CHRs. Copy this part. Alright. And it says to add this at the end of load MSSSS. Now, this can be a little tricky to find, but let's go back to doLoad screen 16. So this is obviously the start of the routine, but let's go down a bit here. So how can we find the end? How do you know what's the end? Well, if you go down here, you can see for me it's line 199. There's another label here, not MSSSS. So basically this is the end of load MSSSS. So just before this JMP done loading CHR, that's where I'm going to paste my new code. And as you can see, we have a duplicate of this line. So let's just delete one of them, like that. And let me also just write a little comment here. Animated tiles. So I know that this part has also to do with animated tiles. Okay. So the next thing, he says we can do a progress check. Let's not bother with that. But he says find done loading CHRs, and that's at the bottom of the script. And we need to add 4 lines under it. So let's just copy the last 4 lines there. Let's leave out done loading CHRs. Just copy these last 4 lines here. Alright, copy that. So from switch CHR bank 00 to load sprite CHR loop. Copy that, and once again back to do load screen 16. Let's go all the way to the bottom. Let's find something called done loading CHRs. So there it is. In my case, that's line 357. There's something here called done loading CHRs. If you go back to the tutorial, that's exactly the label we're looking for. So just below that, we need to add a new code. And once again, I'm going to write a tiny little comment here, animated tiles, like that. And at the end of the script, right before the RTS, we need to add this part. So copy this next code block, copy, and we need to add this just before RTS. So back to do load screen 16. Let's go all the way down. There's RTS. So just before RTS, I'm going to paste this new part. Just tidy up the code like that. Something like that, I think. Just make it look a little more tidy. And once more, I will write a little comment, animated tiles. So I know that this part has also to do with animated tiles. Now notice something here. He has written a little comment that says animated tile loading code will go here. That's actually the next part that we're going to do. So just make sure you pasted this just before RTS here. And back to the tutorial, and he says now the last part of the script, which is this part, switch CHR bank 01. This thing. So select everything in there, copy, and back to the script. So now we're going to replace James's comment. Just select this whole thing, select this comment, and paste in the code we just copied. I'm just going to move it a little bit over to the side like that. So this part, the part that we just copied, will replace this. So this will replace this. Why James didn't write the whole thing to begin with, I don't know. But let's just do what he says here. Okay, so that's it for do load screen 16. So let's just make sure we save our do load screen 16. Okay, so the next part, set up the timer. Well, here's our timer script, the one that we made at the beginning. So this is really simple. If you closed your timer script, just go to project settings and game, handle game timer and edit. I'm just gonna write one more comment here that says animated tiles in my game timer script. So I know that the next part has to do with animated tiles. So back to James NES's tutorial, set up the timer. So basically what we need to do right now is just copy this part. Select, copy, go back to our timer script, and just under my comment, animated tiles, I'm going to paste this new part. Let's just spend 1 second looking at this. If you can see this first part here, that's where we're loading user screen byte 7. So this is the part where we check if user screen byte 7 is 0 or if it's something else. So I'm just going to use 0 or 1 for 0 for no animated tiles and 1 for animated tiles. But this is where the check is done. So that's why it's so important that we did what we did last time to activate the user screen bytes. Alright, let's not go more into detail about this. Next thing it says, and we're done. Okay, so let's save our game timer script. So let's just double check. We exported our graphic files, animtiles01 chr, animtiles2 chr. Both of those are stored in graphics in the base45 folder. Not the graphic assets folder, but this folder we made under base45. Okay, if we did that, and if we followed all the steps, as I said, there's so much going on, so we can't explain everything in detail here. Can't talk about everything. But as you can see, you have a lot of things going back and forth between banks. We have put our new graphic files, the CHR files, we've stored them in bank 17. In bank 16, we put these tables, and it did some changes to do load screen 16, which is where the magic happens. And we have this game timer. That's a script that's running all the time. And in fact, if you need to use some timer stuff later on in your game, you can just continue using this file. So this game timer script is not just for our animated tiles. You can write whatever routine you want in here. Okay, so also don't forget, if you're doing this, for every screen it has to be set up with no path main screen times 3. That's important, because basically what's happening here is, as I said, this top line is being it's going to cycle through these top lines. Not this part, just this top line. Alright, so what if we go to our overworld, and let's go back to this black hole I was talking about last time. So I'm going to choose my green palette. I'm going to choose this top left tile. I'm going to place it right there. I'm going to choose this next tile, and I'm going to drag it like that. So now it kind of looks like a sewer pipe with something coming out of it. Okay, so do we have animated tiles now? Well, let's check our screen info. So my user screen byte 7 says 0 right now. And in fact, sometimes it can be hard to remember, was it user screen byte 7 or was it 6? So let's be smart about this. Let's close this one. Let's go to our project settings over here. And let's go to our screen bytes. The project labels screen bytes. Let's find user screen byte 7 here. And here I'm going to rename it to animated tiles, like that. And click close. So now when I go into screen info, you can see that it says animated tiles. I don't have to wonder anymore. I know that this is the part where I activate animated tiles. So it says 0 right now. I need to set it to 1 to activate animated tiles here. Okay, so I set it to 1 and OK. Alright, let's try it out. Let's click export and test. Let's see how this goes. So no error messages. Once again, good sign. And now comes the moment of truth. Hey, look at that. The sewer is flowing out of the pipe. That's pretty cool. And the cool thing is that it works great with scrolling. So that's nice. But right now this looks weird. I can walk right through it. So I'm going to set this as a solid tile. Now the thing is that when using animated tiles, we're just talking about graphics. The collision is not cycled. So whatever we set up as collision here is what collision that tile will have. So when we're talking about animated tiles, it's just the graphics. So I set up a 1 for this, so now I should be able to stand on this sewer pipe. So let's try that. And I can stand on the sewer pipe. Okay, well, this is nice. So we have animated tiles working. Great stuff. Now I know that this was a lot, and hopefully I didn't go through everything too fast, because there's so much back and forth there, so much weird stuff happening, that it's really easy to get confused here. But hopefully you got this. So that's it for this video. Now I was thinking that since we have our Agent Blue game already set up, so maybe we could do some interesting things. So I have a couple of ideas for at least one more episode, maybe even 2 more episodes with Agent Blue. But that's going to have to wait. So for now, if you got animated tiles working, seriously, that's great work, because this is pretty advanced stuff. But for now, have a great day. Bye bye.